I met a wonderful black lady tonight. She started screaming off the top of her head, man, like some old stuff, man. And she's like, "Oh, you racist because I'm black? I'm more than that." I said, like, "Get the devil, get behind you. It was history, not hate." And I go, man. She was a undercover angel, man. She was trying to help out. So everybody watching, and I said, "Man, you see that white guy kind of talking to that black woman, and she's yelling?" And then they peacefully was like, "Oh, cool, you have a good night." And I said, "Yeah, you have a good night too." And they're like, "Man, they weren't being racist. They were just discussing stuff." And I said, "Yeah, so this is how we discuss it, you know?" He said, "Well, we got these black heavenly, Blackfoot Indians, They come from island too. It's like a big island over there, Africa. And you got some from Egypt. And maybe some of them came from the islands, And we said, Blackfoot Indians, They got a little magical stuff too, We say, come over here. And they're like, we'll tell you the truth about slavery. You might have seen some other videos, scroll down. We got plenty of scrolls, man. So you see, and it says, they weren't really slaves. They came over because their country made them slaves, but they weren't really slaves. It was like trying to put them through an educational system, but we didn't have the computers back then, So they couldn't really learn anything, and plus, primitive teaching. So the truth was, they come over here, and they're like, "Man, let's all grow crops together." So, but they're, an easier way to say a universal healthcare system. We made Crocodile Dundee. Hey, Florida Gators, Crocodile Dundee. Remember New York? I says, "Man, I can't believe New York said this and that." I says, "Well, we had Crocodile Dundee, I said, "Don't talk about Africa. We'll talk about Australia. Crocodile Dundee, So he says, Crocodile Dundee, come on. He says, he's friend with these Aborigines, man. I'll tell you about the Aborigines. They kind of knew some stuff about hypnotism too, But they didn't have the psychology and psychiatry of the British intelligence and stuff. So we try to put all that stuff together, They work out at first. So we made a universal healthcare system. So so they're all out there making these different sounds and different noises because, they need a little bit of animals and stuff. That's why we made the movie, Dr. Dolittle, with Eddie Murphy and stuff, But they didn't know about, those Indian people, like North American Indians, South American Indians, because we work our lands and they work their lands, and we figure put all this stuff together, it might work, But, so, they come over, and they're planting this stuff, and it says, "Here you go." So they made them cook so they could cook with the vegetables and stuff, and all the stuff and the crosses were growing. And it's like, "Hey, look, you see? Remember where you come from. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff because everything was, gone." And I'll tell you why. They still do some of that today to keep history. Maybe one day somebody explain it. Fire breaks. What's fire breaks? Well, you say fire breaks because it's like an oven. You're cooking all your resources up and everything's gone. Burning everything up like an oven. So we say fire breaks. So the fire department used to go out and make fire breaks. What was fire breaks for? So when they burn the forest down, the fire can only go so far until it stops. And the reason why, because resources are low. They wanted to get livestock and animals and stuff in one place, so they could feed their families and stuff instead of hunting and doing the stuff the way you're supposed to. So they burnt. They dropped the nuclear bombs, and they also burnt some forest to chase the animals and say, "We got good hunting lands over here because we got all the animals over here because we burnt their forest over there." And they didn't realize, you keep doing that eventually. Whole planet's messed up, and then the livestock is dying, got nowhere to live. So they got these farms and these arcs, and these scientific, stuff, breeding animals and trying to replenish all that stuff, but they gotta have a place to put them, So Mars mission, man, we'd start making new forests and stuff for them to go back through. There's plenty of food and stuff for everybody. So that's why you have these vegetarian vegetable burgers and alternatives, to give the livestock time to replenish. That's why they stopped doing the net fishing out there in the ocean. Hey, don't use your nets because we need the fish to replenish, right? Well, we're really talking about fish because there's plenty of kind of fish out there in the ocean, Plenty of fish in the sea. But they were trying to tell them about fishing on land, because you can't burn forests and chase the animals here and say, "Look, we got better hunting lands. Come over here, live here," because then you're in one place, resources go. They do the same thing again, and eventually you're out of land. So, Danny Glover got on TV and he says, "I'm proud of my black heritage. I'm going to teach the truth too." So he says, "Go Postal." So we took this website, YouTube channel, we put it on a bunch of envelopes, and we says, remember Danny Glover? Yeah, man. Some of those original Pony Express people, like the Underground Railroad. It wasn't really about moving slaves and stuff, man. It was about communications, moving letters, and because some of those black people couldn't read or write, they were, Secret Service people. They take the envelope, write the letters and stuff, and put them in there, and say, "Hey, I need you to take this over here." Pony Express, man. Top secret stuff. Nobody could understand it, and they just, right? So eventually, we fixed the education system, to get rid of that segregation and stuff. They weren't slaves; they were heroes. But instead of telling everybody, they couldn't read and write, but they did important stuff, we made a different history. So that way, everybody could be like, cool, So, tell you the truth, some of them were secret agents. That's why we had the Civil War. Like, hey, all the black people want to fight in the Civil War, Hey, let's do this, and we need you to do this. And top secret communications like that. So that's why you see a history video down there at the Space Center and say the black women want to get in this room and do this, but it's not true history. It's just a clue to the true history. See, it was a puzzle game. So, it just I give you a little history, not hate. So now people are starting to find out, and they're like, man, I never do that. And they goes, well, it'll show you your parents, There's really old parents, Not your grandfather, your grandma. If one of your great grannies and your great grandfather is still alive, say, hey, look at this guy's video, man. He remembers. Because those were postal workers. That's why Danny Glover with Lethal Weapon was like, I'm proud to be a postal worker. It's like, man, I'm proud of my black history. It's like, you guys don't even know yet. So you tell them about that. Your grandparents were like, man, you wouldn't believe. That's why when we went up north and started talking to the black folks up there, they were like, hey, man, can somebody get that Space Marine out there? The black guy, he puts on his Marine hat, and he's like, I served, man, I remember. He says, hey, man, these people bothering you, these young punks. He's like, check us out. I'll walk with you. He says, hey, man, come with me. We'll go get you some gas money. We're going to drive that U-Haul all across a couple more states. And he says, man, are you serious? He says, yeah, man, it's all about the state of mind, man. So he says, Crocodile Dundee, man. The New York thing, it's like, hey, that's not a knife. This is a knife. So we tell them about machetes. He said, machetes? You guys seen the movie Machete? Well, it's a remind, when you're walking through the woods, they had machetes. They cut down, the weeds and stuff, man, so they could get through these bushes, Aborigines, used to be bushmen. See what I mean? Bushmen. But, when they ran out of stuff, they weren't bushmen anymore. So there were no bushes to chop down with machetes. So they load them all up on boats and say, hey, go to the new land and start over like those other people did. And it says, it's a Christian nation, a God-fearing nation, a deist nation. You got all kind of religions over there. And maybe all together, you stir it up in a pot and you come out with something good. And eventually we did the International Space Station. Imagine that. And they go, whoa, I cannot believe it. He says, man, wait till you see what happened next. You just got to stay tuned.